The pale sun rose over the spired towers of Curia, casting long shadows on the marble steps that led to the alien queen's throne. Mara, the human envoy, stepped forward with careful grace. She wore a simple gray coat and carried a small box wrapped in cloth. Her heart thudded in her chest, but her face stayed calm. At the top of the stairs, the throne room opened into a vast hall. High vaulted ceilings shone with crystals that caught the sunlight. Guards in tall helmets and silver armor stood at attention along the walls. Their eyes followed Mara as she approached the throne, and their whispered voices trembled like dry leaves. The alien queen sat on a crystal seat carved from a single gem. Her skin was smooth and pale blue, and her long hair fell like liquid silver. She wore a flowing garment that shimmered with every color of the sky. Yet she did not move. Her posture was straight, but her hands rested on the armrests without a flick of motion. Her gaze pointed upward, as if she looked at something only she could see. Mara knelt on the cool floor, holding out the small box. The guards stiffened, but they did not stop her. Gentle music echoed from unseen corners of the hall. Mara unwrapped the cloth and opened the box. Inside lay a tiny seed, no larger than her thumbnail. It shone with a soft green light. "This is from Earth," Mara said in a clear voice. "It is a seed of life. I offer it to you as a sign of peace." Her words floated in the quiet air. She reached forward and held the glowing seed between her fingers. Light danced on her face. The seed pulsed like a heartbeat. For a moment, Mara thought the queen's lips might part. But the queen stayed still and silent. A cold breeze drifted through the room, carrying the faint scent of ice and metal. Mara pressed the seed forward. She lowered her head in respect. "Great Queen," she whispered, "I bring hope and friendship from my world." The guards shifted uneasily. One guard in dark armor stepped close, his boots clicking on the marble. He watched Mara with hard eyes. He cleared his throat and spoke in a low tone to his neighbor. The neighbor shook his head and glanced at the queen. Neither guard dared to move closer. Mara's fingers trembled as she held the seed out. She felt the weight of 1,000 years of history in this moment. The queen's silence was like a wall. The pulsing seed was like a small drum in the emptiness. Mara took a steady breath. She stood slowly and straightened. The guards did not step forward to stop her. She tucked the box into her coat and bowed once more. "Thank you for listening," she said softly. Then she turned and walked back down the stairs, her boots echoing in the hall. Behind her, the queen remained frozen. But as Mara's footsteps faded, a single thread of light pulsed in the queen's palm, as if the tiny seed had found its true home. Mara moved through the wide corridors of the palace, her boots clicking on the polished stone floor. Tall pillars lined the hall, each carved with scenes of past queens and great battles. Faded tapestries hung between them, their colors dim with age. The air felt heavy, as if the palace itself held its breath. She stopped by an open doorway and peeked inside. A group of courtiers stood in a circle, their voices low. They turned when they saw her, then fell silent again. Mara stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said politely. "May I ask what troubles you?" An older lady, dressed in pale green robes, glanced at her. She looked tired and worried. "Our queen has not moved in days," the lady whispered. "We do not know why. Her body is still, and her eyes look past us into something we cannot see." Mara nodded. "I saw this for myself. Do you know how long she has been like this?" "She has not spoken or walked since the moon turned new," another courtier said. His voice trembled. "That is almost 3 weeks. Without her voice, our armies wait. Without her word, our allies grow angry." Mara felt a knot tighten in her chest. "Has anyone tried to wake her? To speak to her?" They exchanged glances. The older lady sighed. "Many have knelt before her throne, just as you did. They offered gifts. They sang songs of old. Nothing works. Some fear she carries a spell or a deep sorrow." Mara thought of the glowing seed in her pouch, Perhaps it held power beyond her knowing. She bowed her head. "Thank you for telling me. I will do my best to help her." She left the room and walked on. At each turn, more whispers followed her steps. Guards spoke in low tones, servants hurried away at her approach, and palace workers shook their heads. Every voice spoke of the same fear. If the queen stayed silent, war would come. Mara reached a tall window that looked out over the city. Slender spires and domed roofs stretched into the distance. Below, courtyards lay empty, waiting for the queen's command. She pressed her hand to the cool glass and closed her eyes. The wind carried the distant sound of marching feet, a reminder that armies stood ready on both sides of the world. She opened her eyes and drew a steady breath. The weight of her task pressed on her, but she did not waver. The queen's stillness was a riddle, and Mara was determined to solve it. She pressed her fingers to the pouch at her side and felt the seed's faint pulse, a small promise of life. Turning from the window, Mara walked toward the royal library. There, she hoped to find records of old prophecies or hidden spells. If she could learn the cause of the queen's silence, she might find a way to help. The palace grew quieter as she passed. Only the distant echo of her boots broke the stillness. With each step, Mara felt the palace's heart beat more softly. She knew time was short. Somewhere in these halls lay the answer that would free the queen. And with the seed's light in her hand, Mara was ready to face the palace's deepest secrets. Mara slipped through a narrow side door and found herself in the royal garden. Strange flowers, once bright and tall, now drooped with dry petals. Moss covered the marble paths. Broken statues lay half buried in soil. The air smelled of dust and old stone. She knelt beside a twisted vine that climbed a shattered arch. Its leaves were black at the edges. Carefully, Mara touched one leaf. It crumbled in her fingers. She pressed the seed's pouch at her side and whispered, "If this garden holds a secret, I will find it." A soft groan came from behind a row of thorny bushes. Mara rose and edged forward. There, on a low bench, sat a guard. His silver armor was dented, and his helmet lay on the ground. His right arm was wrapped in cloth, stained dark. "Are you hurt?" Mara asked, stepping into the clearing. The guard looked up with tired eyes. He was young, his face still smooth. He tried to speak but winced. Mara knelt beside him and offered water from her canteen. He drank gratefully. "I saw it," he said, voice low. "I saw what happened to her." Mara's heart beat faster. "Tell me everything," she said gently. He swallowed and pointed toward the palace windows. 3 weeks ago, the queen came here at night. She carried a mirror made of black glass. She held it to the moonlight. Then she spoke words I could not understand. "What did you feel?" Mara asked. "A chill moved through my bones," he whispered. The moon shone bright, but the garden went dark. The flowers froze in place. The statues, they cracked as if something inside them fought to break free. Mara glanced at a statue of a past queen, its face split by a long crack. What words did she say? The guard shook his head. "I only heard one phrase again and again. Heart of the world, heed my plea." Then a wind blew so hard I fell. When I woke, the queen was gone. The next morning, she would not move. Mara pressed her hand to her chest. Heart of the world. Perhaps she meant the source of life in this realm. She looked at the withered plants. If I can find that source, maybe I can help her. The guard nodded and winced in pain. "Be careful. There are places in the garden no one dares to go. Hidden springs, old statues, forgotten shrines. Some say they hold powers the queen feared." Mara stood and offered her hand. "Thank you. I will be cautious." He took her hand with a weak grip. "Gods watch over you," he said, then closed his eyes. Mara set down her box and gently placed the glowing seed beside the vine. The light touched the broken stone. For a moment, a faint green glow traced the cracks. It was like a door slowly opening. She picked up the seed and tucked it away. With a final look at the wounded guard, Mara rose and walked deeper into the garden. Shadows grew long as she passed under bowed trees. Somewhere ahead, hidden among dead roses, lay the queen's secret, a key to free her from the silent spell. And Mara would find it, no matter what lay in her path. Mara stepped out of the garden through a broken arch. Ahead lay the rocky road to the crystal caves. She carried only her small pack, the glowing seed, and a canteen of water. The sky was pale, and cold winds swept across the open fields. Each gust tugged at her coat and whispered warnings of the trials to come. She walked along a narrow path that climbed toward the distant mountain. The ground under her boots was loose and sharp. Stones slid as she placed each foot. Mara kept her eyes on the peak, where jagged rocks rose like ancient teeth. The road narrowed until she walked between two steep cliffs. There, the wind howled as if it tried to push her back down the path. Halfway up, strange shapes moved on the rocks ahead. Mara paused. Small creatures with hard shells and glowing eyes crawled along the stone faces. They hissed when they saw her. She held her breath and stepped sideways, giving them room. The creatures did not chase her. Instead, they retreated into tiny cracks. Mara felt a chill. These creatures had learned to fear all visitors. She pressed on with steady steps. As the path wound higher, the air grew thin and cold. Mara stopped to drink water and rest her legs. She looked down at the valley, where the city of Curia lay small and distant. The palace spires shone in the fading light. Behind her, guards searched the garden for her return. But she must reach the caves before night fell, or the mountain would hide its entrance. At last, she saw the cave mouth. Two tall pillars of crystal framed a dark opening. Soft light shone from within, dancing on the wet stone walls. The pull Mara felt was strong and gentle, as if the cave itself invited her in. She drew the sieve from her pack. Its faint glow matched the crystal glow above the entrance. Mara took a deep breath and stepped forward. Inside, the air was still and cool. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the floor felt slick under her boots. Crystal veins ran in the walls like frozen rivers. They faintly lit the path deeper into the cave. Mara heard her own heartbeat echo. Every step brought a hum of energy through her body. She kept the seed close, hoping its life force would guide her. She paused at a wider chamber. Stalactites hung like ancient chandeliers. In the center lay a crystal pool, its surface perfectly still. The light from the walls reflected in the water, creating patterns on the ceiling. Mara knelt and placed the seed on a flat stone beside the pool. The seed's glow pulsed in rhythm with the cave's hum. She felt sure that the crystal shard she sought lay beneath the water. Gathering her courage, Mara reached out her hand and prepared to dive into the pool's quiet depths. 2 seconds, Mara held her breath and dipped her hand into the crystal pool. The water was cool and clear, and it rippled gently around her fingers. Light from the cave walls shimmered on the surface like dancing stars. She closed her eyes, feeling the pull toward something deep below. Slowly, Mara submerged her hand. Tiny fish with silver scales darted away. The water held no fear, only calm. She felt along the rocky bottom with careful fingers. Then her hand brushed something smooth and hard, a crystal shard no larger than her palm. Its edges glowed with soft light. She gripped the shard and lifted it. As she did, the water began to swirl around her. Shadows formed in the pool, shapes of faces and voices rising from the depths. Mara opened her eyes and saw illusions, images of people she knew, her mother's gentle smile, her sister's laughter, and soldiers fallen in battle. Each vision showed fear, pain, and loss. Mara's heart ached. A deep voice echoed in the chamber. "Why do you seek power, human? Do you not know suffering?" Mara steadied her grip. "I do not seek power," she said, her voice firm. "I seek help for the queen. She is trapped in silence and stillness. I need this shard to free her." The visions shifted. She saw herself turning the shard into a weapon, destroying foes. Fear whispered that she might use it wrongly. Doubt filled her mind. Was she worthy of this gift of the world's heart? Mara let go of the shard for a moment and knelt in the water. She closed her eyes and thought of the queen, alone and frozen. She thought of the guard in the garden, wounded for her cause. Compassion filled her chest, warm and bright. She opened her eyes and rose. "Look," she said softly to the shadows. "I carry no hate. I only carry hope." The water stilled. Shadows faded like mist in sunlight. The chamber grew silent except for the gentle drip of water. The crystal shard floated toward Mara's outstretched hand. She caught it and felt its warmth in her palm. A single beam of light broke through a crack in the cave roof and shone on the shard. The light turned brighter and filled the chamber with soft radiance. Mara felt peace settle in her heart. She turned and made her way back toward the cave entrance. With every step, the shard's glow guided her, lighting the dark path. Outside, the wind carried a gentle promise. Mara looked back once, feeling gratitude to the cave's ancient guardians. On the mountain slope, she paused. The cold air brushed her face. Mara pressed the shard close to her chest. "I will not fail you, Queen," she whispered. With the crystal shard secured, Mara began the journey back to the palace. The path down was steep, but her spirit felt lighter. She knew compassion had been the key to claim the shard without harm. Now, with hope and courage, she would return to free the alien queen from her silent spell. Mara hurried down the rocky path, clutching the glowing crystal shard. The wind felt softer now, as if the mountain itself cheered her on. She reached the palace gates just as the pale sun dipped low. Guards barred her way, but she showed them the shard and seed. "This is what the queen needs," she said. "Let me pass." They hesitated, then stepped aside. Their whispered fears gave way to hope. Mara crossed the courtyard, her boots echoing on the stone tiles. Torches along the walls flickered to life, guiding her toward the throne room. Inside the grand hall, the alien queen sat still on her crystal seat. Moonlight filtered through tall windows, painting the room in silver and blue. Courtiers and guards watched in silence as Mara approached the throne platform. Mara knelt at the foot of the throne and opened her pack. She placed the crystal shard on one armrest and the tiny seed on the other. Both objects pulsed gently with light, green for life, white for ancient power. She rose and stepped back. A soft hum filled the hall. Courtiers gasped as the seed's green glow wrapped around the shard's white light. The two lights wove together, forming a bridge of warmth between the armrests. Mara held her breath. The queen's still form began to tremble. Blue skin rippled like water. The long silver hair lifted in an unseen breeze. The hum grew louder until it felt like a song sung by the stars. Then, with a single breath, the queen's eyes flickered open. They glowed with memory. The first image she saw was Mara's face, kind and determined. Recognition sparked in her gaze. "Who are you?" the queen asked, her voice soft but clear. It echoed through the hall. "I am Mara," the envoy said, bowing her head. "I come from Earth. I offered these gifts to show peace." The queen rose from her throne, her movements slow but steady. She lifted a hand and brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. Memories flooded her mind. The night she spoke to the moon in the garden, her voice calling for the heart of the world, and the fear that she had failed her people. Tears gathered in her pale blue eyes. She looked at the seed and shard. "I forgot," she whispered. "I forgot my promise to protect this realm." Mara stepped forward gently. "You carried their hopes, great queen. You made a vow when you offered your heart to the world. I only helped you remember." The queen nodded, her gaze lifting to the vaulted ceiling. "Yes," she said, voice stronger now. "I promised life and light, but sorrow weighed on me, and I turned away. I froze myself to hide my failure." Mara's heart ached at the queen's words. "You did not fail," she said. "Your people need you now, more than ever." The queen glanced at the courtiers, who bowed their heads in respect. She turned back to Mara and smiled. "Thank you, Mara of Earth. You have returned my hope." Mara bowed again, relief warming her chest. The light from the seed and shard pulsed once more, then faded. The throne room brightened as torches flared, filling the hall with golden glow. Together, Queen and envoy stood side by side. A new promise hung in the air, to heal the realm and forge a bond between two worlds. And in that moment, simple gifts had woven a story of memory, trust, and renewed purpose. The throne room buzzed with renewed energy as the alien queen returned to life. Courtiers whispered praises, and guards straightened their stance. Yet not all hearts welcomed change. In a dark corner near the tall windows, Lord Vasha, a high noble in deep purple robes, narrowed his eyes. He stepped forward, his polished boots echoing on the marble floor. "You meddle in matters beyond your kind," Lord Vasha declared, voice cold. He bowed low before the queen, then looked up at Mara. "This human envoy walks our halls and offers charms and tricks. How do we know she did not bind our queen with outside magic?" A ripple of agreement passed through several nobles behind him. Whispers of fear and anger spread like wildfire. Some spoke of ancient laws forbidding foreign powers in royal affairs. Others questioned the wisdom of trusting a human with their sovereign's fate. Mara straightened and met Lord Vasha's gaze. Her heart pounded, but her voice stayed calm. "I only offered two gifts, a seed of life and a shard of hope," she said. "Neither binds your queen." They remind her of her own promise. Her words were soft but firm. "I risked danger to find the shard in the crystal caves. If I sought power, I would have used it on your armies, not your ruler." Lord Vasha's lips twisted. "Your words are smooth, but your presence unsettles us. If the queen grows weak again, who will answer for her fate?" The queen rose from her throne and held up a hand. The hall fell silent. Her pale blue eyes shone with authority. "Lord Vasha, we owe our thanks to Mara," she said. "She faced darkness and doubt to bring light back to my heart. I trust her judgment, and I trust her courage." A murmur of surprise ran through the courtiers. Some bowed their heads in shame. Lord Vasha clenched his fists at his sides. He swallowed and bowed deeply to the queen. "Forgive my doubt, your majesty," he said. His voice shook. "You have my loyalty." Mara bowed to the queen and turned to leave the throne platform. She felt relief bloom in her chest, yet she sensed that lasting peace would require more than gratitude. She needed to prove the bond between worlds. As she reached the steps, the queen called her back. "Mara, stay," she said. "You will help guide our council on the path ahead." The courtiers stepped aside, making room. Mara hesitated, then nodded. "I will serve you and your people," she said. "Together, we will heal this realm and build trust." The queen smiled. "Rise, envoy of Earth." She motioned to the council table. "Let us begin." Mara took her place beside the queen's throne, the seed's memory glowing in her mind. Outside the tall windows, the city lights began to sparkle as night fell. Though doubt had risen, it was met with truth and unity. In that moment, hope spread across the throne room like dawn breaking through storm clouds. And Mara knew her journey had only just begun. That evening, the royal council gathered in the grand chamber. Long tables of polished wood held maps, documents, and empty cups of spiced tea. Flickering lanterns cast warm light across eager faces. Mara sat beside the alien queen, feeling both pride and responsibility. The queen stood and addressed her advisors. "We face threats from the northern clans. Their armies gather at our border. We need a plan that does not break our bond with Earth." She glanced at Mara. "Envoy, do you have ideas?" Mara rose. She spoke clearly, using simple words. "We can share our seed's gift with the people. Let every village plant a small piece of this life. If our allies see Earth's hope growing here, they may choose peace over war." She held her hands out, as if offering the idea for all to touch. A murmur ran through the council. One general, a tall woman in silver armor, stood. We cannot sow fields with a strange seed. We know nothing of its long-term effect. Her voice was firm, but curious. Mara nodded. I understand. The seed is new here, but it is Earth's first gift of friendship. I will help you study its growth. If it proves safe, we can plant more. She paused. I will work with your scholars. Together, we learn and share. The scholars, in robes of blues and greens, leaned forward. One younger scholar, his glasses slipping down his nose, asked, What power does the seed hold? Why did it glow? Mara smiled softly. On Earth, seeds hold life inside. They sleep until they find earth and water. Then they grow into plants that feed and heal. This seed glows because it carries life's promise. It helps living things remember to grow. She pointed to the crystal shard on the table. And the shard holds hope. Together, they remind the queen of her promise. And they can remind your people of hope. The general frowned. Hope is strong, but not a weapon. The queen raised a hand. We will prepare our armies. But first, we will send small teams to villages near the border. They will plant seeds in secret gardens. They will teach farmers simple earth methods. She turned to Mara. Envoy, lead the first team. Mara stood taller, surprised at the honor. Yes, Your Majesty, she said. I will lead them myself. She felt warmth at the Queen's trust. As the council approved the plan, Lord Vasha spoke from his seat. This gift could unite us, or it could fail and bring doubt. He looked at the Queen. But if it succeeds, it binds us to Earth in a way no treaty can. The Queen smiled. Then we begin tomorrow. She sat, signaling the council to break. Advisors rose and spoke in excited whispers. Mara gathered her notes in the small box with remaining seeds. Outside, the moon shone bright, gentle on the palace towers. Mara stepped onto a balcony beside the Queen. The night air felt cool and hopeful. She looked at the Queen. Thank you for this chance, Mara said. The Queen placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. Thank you for your courage. Together, we will grow peace. Below, torches lit the courtyard as teams prepared to depart. The tiny seeds of life would carry promise into dark lands, and in every planted garden, hope would take root, uniting two worlds in something small, yet powerful. Before dawn, Mara led a small team of 5 envoys down the winding path from the palace. Each carried a satchel with seeds and simple tools, shovels, watering skins, and notebooks. The northern border villages lay hidden in misty valleys far below. Mara's heart beat fast with hope and worry. They reached the first village at sunrise. Smoke curled from stone chimneys. Wooden houses stood close together, their roofs dark and wet from last night's rain. Children played near a well, and farmers tended small plots of vegetables. The village looked poor and tired. Mara approached the headman, an older woman with wise eyes and a strong voice. She wore a faded blue shawl and carried a wooden staff. The woman stopped her work when she saw Mara's uniform and stepped forward. Envoy, the headman said, bowing. What brings Earth's gift to our fields? Mara knelt on the muddy ground and opened her satchel. She showed the headman a shining seed. This is a seed from Earth, she said. It carries light and hope. If you plant it, a new plant will grow. It may help feed your people. The headman studied the seed. Her brow furrowed. She reached out and touched it gently. I have heard of Earth's peace, she said, but I have seen war and hunger. How can a single seed change our fate? Mara smiled kindly. Even one small sprout can give hope. If this plant grows well, it can feed a family. If many grow, they can feed a village. And when people see it, they will know Earth stands with you. The headman stood, then nodded slowly. Show me how. Mara handed her a small shovel. Together, they dug a hole near the edge of the garden. The headman placed the seed in the soft soil. Mara sprinkled a little water on top. The headman patted the ground. Now we wait, Mara said. They marked the spot with a thin stick. The villagers watched in quiet curiosity. Mara spoke to them in simple words. She explained how to care for the seed: gentle water, soft soil, and time. The villagers nodded, their faces hopeful but cautious. That evening, Mara's team camped outside the village. They shared a simple meal of bread and stew. Around the fire, the headman joined them. She held Mara's hand. "I believe this seed may be more than food," the headman said softly. "It may grow peace in our hearts." Mara felt warmth in her chest and squeezed the headman's hand. The next morning, Mara rose early. Mist lay thick in the valley, but a bright beam of sunlight pierced the fog. She hurried to the garden. There, the seed had sprouted. A small green shoot pushed through the soil, its first leaf reaching for the light. Mara's breath caught. The shoot glowed faintly in the morning sun. She knelt beside it, her eyes shining with wonder. One by one, the villagers emerged from their homes. The headman stood behind Mara, her shawl glowing in the soft light. A child stepped forward and reached out to touch the leaf. She looked up at the headman with a wide smile. The headman laughed, tears in her eyes, and lifted the child into her arms. Mara stood and watched as hope grew in the village. News would spread soon. Earth's gift took root. In every heart, a promise of peace and friendship grew stronger than any army. And Mara knew that the first sprout was the true power to unite two worlds. Word of the sprouted seed spread quickly. Farmers in nearby villages spoke of its gentle glow and strong leaves. Merchants on dusty roads carried news of Earth's gift, and soldiers at border outposts whispered of peace instead of war. The alien queen watched these reports from her palace balcony, standing beside Mara. Both looked out at the lands below, where tiny green sprouts dotted fields like stars in the dark. The queen turned to Mara. "You have done well, envoy. Your small gift has grown hope beyond my throne room." Her voice was steady and warm. Mara bowed respectfully. "It was the people's faith, Your Majesty. They believed in the seed. They believed in peace." The queen smiled and offered her hand. Mara accepted it, and together they walked into the council chamber. Courtiers, generals, and scholars filled the long tables once more. But this time, tension had eased. Faces that showed doubt were now bright with curiosity and hope. The queen lifted the young seedling from a glass case on the table. It had grown tall and strong overnight, its leaves wide and green. Flames from lanterns flickered on its smooth stem. "Let this seedling be the first of many," the queen declared. "Let it remind us that even small acts can change the world." A general in silver armor stood. "Your Majesty, our armies still stand at the border. But if the northern clans wish peace, we will lower our banners." He bowed his head. A scholar spoke next, adjusting his glasses. "I request permission to study this seed's growth and share our findings with Earth. We can learn new crops, new medicines." The court nodded in agreement. Lord Vasha, once the harshest critic, stepped forward. He touched the seedling's leaves gently. "I admit I was wrong. This small gift holds more power than I imagined. Let us welcome Earth's friendship as a true alliance." Mara felt warmth at his words. She looked at the queen, who nodded with pride. Outside, trumpets sounded across the palace grounds. Soldiers in bright uniforms formed ranks, their banners flying in the wind. In every hand, they held sprigs of green from the seedling's grove. The royal gardens had become a forest of young plants, each grown from the queen's first gift. The queen and Mara walked to the gates. There, ambassadors from Earth's leaders waited in simple uniforms. They bowed as the queen approached. Mara introduced each one. Smiles and bows were exchanged. The ambassadors carried gifts of their own: grains, tools, and art from Earth's people. The queen took one ambassador's hand. "With these gifts, our worlds join together," she said. "We will share knowledge, trade, and protection. We will face the future as allies." Mara stepped forward and spoke to both sides. "I come from Earth to offer friendship. Today that friendship is sealed. Together, we will grow a future where no world stands alone. Cheers rose from the crowd. The soldiers played trumpets, and the people wept tears of joy. In that moment, two worlds found unity in something small and simple: a seed of life, a shard of hope, and the promise of peace. Under the pale sky of Curia, humans and aliens shook hands. Fields of green swayed in the breeze, and the once silent throne room echoed with new beginnings. And so a new alliance was born, rooted in kindness and grown by faith, ready to face whatever stars the future held.